approached that and said, well, we think he slipped and fell. And they didn't tell her too much after. They said there was some sort of altercation earlier that night, but they don't think that that was related to what happened. The mom, her name is Cheryl, very persistent mom, as any mom would be. She wanted to get to the bottom of what happened that night and began to sort of doing her own investigating with her nieces and nephews, friends, to find out what happened. And when the police came to visit her on day 3, actually she went down to the police station, she said, I know something happened to my child. There was an altercation earlier, and I know that he was beaten. And I don't think that this was a slip and fall. And at that point, they told her that the case, that they came to their own conclusion. They did their own investigating on day 3, and they proceeded to hand her in a bag of his clothes, hand the clothes back to the mom and dad, and said to her that we think that he slipped and fell, and that there is no more sort of investigating that needs to happen. I was too late to tell her to leave the clothes at the police station. She went home in tears, and that's sort of how we began to be involved in this case. And when we went to Prince Rupert and first started getting involved in the first case, and there's 2 other cases that were sort of unsolved in Prince Rupert, and the families were unhappy with the circumstances that surrounded and didn't feel like they got enough information about their children's death. And we then, instead of us going up there by ourselves, I've talked with Grand Chief Stuart Phillip and gave some great guidance. We brought in Civil Liberties Association so that they could provide a legal briefing. Stuart said we need to kind of write things down, make sure we have legal briefing, so we did. We brought up a lawyer and sat down with the police and got the stories from their perspective and got the stories from the family's perspective, and began that sort of paper trail of ensuring that justice comes, whatever form of justice that means to each of the family, started happening. We had a lot of roadblocks along the way. I don't even know if the case is open or closed to date. They keep saying it's closed, that it's open, then it's closed, then it's open. And finally we assisted, I think it was the Prince Rupert program, got in contact with the family and provided support, got them to file a police complaints report. And in doing that, they had to have Prince George come up and do an investigation on the investigation. And when they did that, the story that they had said was Justin pulled a knife at some point. There was 3 versions of what that knife looked like. And that he pulled a knife, and that's why they beat him up. And they looked for the knife, they couldn't find any knife that was there. And so they were convinced that that's what happened. They said everybody that was there corroborated the story. And when they had the funeral, the mom noticed that there was a lot of bumps on Justin's head, a lot of bruises that came up, and was very concerned, and she knew that this wasn't just because he was hitting the rocks, it was because that there was something else that was happening in her eyes. And she said, his mom, he's terrified of the water. He would not even go near the water. It's been a big phobia of his for a long, long time. So we worked with the family to complete the police complaint. And when the police complaint, they never got back to the family as to what the recommendations were about from that. And finally we got some information that talked about, through their investigation, they had 27 recommendations on how to investigate this case, and very basic investigation things that we knew weren't happening, which were knock on the neighbors' doors and see if anybody heard anything. Get the videotape from down at the waterfront to see if anything happened. Like very, very basic. So we're still working with these families, and I won't go into the other case because the other case is a little bit more serious in nature as well. But what we found was even trying to find out informations for these families, which they should be getting this information, they should be getting the whole report from the coroner's office. They should be getting constant updates. None of that was really happening. So we've filed a freedom of information. I had to figure it out on my own and how to file these things and phoned everybody. And we got the full coroner's report. We're now filing for the report from the RCMP and the investigation into the report of the RCMP. And it's been a very big challenge, and what it really got us doing was thinking about these 3 families that we're dealing with in Prince Rupert. There's nowhere for them to go. There's no body in place to help them. I don't know anything about medical reports. I looked at the coroner's report, it's like French to me. I have no idea. I had to find a friend of mine who's a medical person, an ex-coroner, to look at it and say, is there anything that jumps out at you on this? So one of the things that we're going to continue to work with these families, get all the information that we can. Once we have all the information, we'll be moving forward with that to make sure that these families have justice for their children. A lot of the families are feeling that their kids' deaths are either one of 3 things. It's either a suicide, a slip and fall, or an alcohol drug overdose. And the reason that those are the 3 sort of things is because nobody wants a murder in their community. And they're feeling that this, with the Highway of 16, devastation that's happening in their community, if there continues to be deaths that are happening, maybe not on the highway, but in the communities, that this will not shed a good light on Prince Rupert. So, and it's been very challenging because this is my home community, and it's been very challenging because most of the people that cause the harm to Justin are our own people. They're our own young youth, their families, they have families in that community, so it's a very difficult situation to be in, but we need to think about how we can help these families get this information. And this information, when they're devastated, they don't even know how to begin to start accessing this information. So we're hoping to develop a provincial-wide body that would have people like advocates, lawyers, someone who's in the medical field, so that when situations like this happen, it's not someone trying to maneuver their way through it. It's actually people coming together that can provide that support to the family and provide advocacy to make sure that they get the information that they need. I'll call Annie up now. We ended up partnering with Simon Fraser University because we thought it was really important to do case studies. Where did these go wrong within the community, and how can we make sure this never happens to any community member again? So I'll pass it over to Annie, and she'll talk a little bit about, and she'll have to share some words as well.